It wasn't inevitable, though, in these swing states. Do you think there'll be some people within the Biden team wondering whether they should have ceded so much airtime to Donald Trump, given how frenetic they've been, or was it always a plan just to ramp things up at the end?
Look, I think the Biden team wouldn't be feeling bad about their strategy, letting Donald Trump more and show people who he is. That's been what the Democratic campaign has all been about. It's been a referendum on Donald Trump rather than a prescription of how they're going to cure Americans' problems. The race is tightening, but there's also a lot more money going into these states in the last few days. There's huge amounts of money going into Florida, huge amounts of money going into Michigan. Michael Bloomberg putting $100 million into Florida advertising, the Republicans putting $10 million into the Michigan Senate race alone. So, of course, we're going to see a corresponding impact in the polls. But I think at this stage, barring an upset, you would think that Biden will win tomorrow and potentially very comfortably.
All right, a prediction early. I like that. What about the spend that you spoke about? How much can you put on, a price of the fact that Trump phenomenon, the amount of airtime he gets anyway? I mean, you think of that sort of, they put a price, didn't they, on the Tiger Woods' golf ball, the Nike swoosh just slowly dropping into the cup, and Donald Trump seems to just have that way, that magnetic appeal. So how do you balance that up?
Well, Trump's got that X factor, there's no doubt about it. And the thing he's been most successful at in his life, and his tax returns show this, is monetising his name and his brand. He is putting everything into it, but he's only one man. And he is, last time, his X factor was an unknown commodity. This time it's very much known. So, yes, he's throwing everything at the campaign in the last few days, but what we haven't seen yet and what we have to see is him picking up new groups of voters. He needs to be picking up Hispanics in Florida, and he needs to be picking up black men, and he needs to be holding suburban white women, for example. That's what we'll be looking for tomorrow. In those early Florida results, we're bound to get what is happening to Trump's numbers in Miami-Dade, what is happening to Trump's numbers in some of those counties in Florida that he swung over to his side last time. Are they holding, or are they falling away? And particularly what's happening with the Hispanic vote there. Is it larger this time? Because the Trump campaign has put a lot of effort into trying to hit that Hispanic vote and get it on side.
So let's look at one race, Pennsylvania. I noticed 538, there are a couple of big aggregate polling groups. 538 has the margin at 4.9, but that's 2 days ago. The recent one from Real Clear Politics has this tightening. Now, it's interesting when you delve into this. I mean, there's one particular poll that's landed since that has tightened this race. So that's the sort of caution, I suppose. But it's 2.9%. It is a lot closer than it was, but going to that methodology, if we're back towards polls we can relatively trust, this is just within the margin of error, but the whole margin has to be applied to Donald Trump for him to win this. I mean, that's not much margin for Donald Trump. Again, assuming we can trust the polls more this time.
Yeah, we know it was close last time, 77,000 votes spread across 3 states. And we know that Pennsylvania is going to be close because it's got that mix of suburbs and it's got that mix of deeply rural areas, the kind of areas that are going to lose if Donald Trump doesn't regain the presidency, that are concerned about Joe Biden's policies on fracking and concerned about who's going to be standing up for them. So we know it's going to be close. You've then got the suburbs that turned out overwhelmingly for the Democrats pretty recently in some of those local council elections in quite a surprisingly strong result. That is going to be a very close state. We're not going to know the result there for some time. The other stat that's interesting when you look at presidential elections too is the popularity of the incumbent coming into the race. Generally, it tracks pretty closely with the final election result. So Donald Trump's popularity coming into his polling, coming into this, personal job approval around 42%. You would expect, based on track record from US presidential elections, that means his result will be somewhere around 45%. And that sort of correlates with a couple of the other polls we're seeing. So that's another one to keep an eye on.
I thought it was pretty interesting that Lady Gaga is going to be at one of the final campaign events for Joe Biden. I mean, we saw the celebrity experiment, if you like, with Hillary Clinton. I think it was noted as well she's anti-fracking. It just seems a strange sort of late decision. I thought, Barack Obama's your star power, if you like. Did this raise any eyebrows with you?
Look, I think, they want to get younger voters out. They want to try and get them to actually turn up on polling day, and so they'll use every celebrity they can. Democrats traditionally have had a much larger roster of celebrities they can call on. some of the celebrities that have endorsed Trump this time around, running their own race. In the case of people like Kanye West. So, look, I don't think Obama's going to get more votes out for Joe Biden than Lady Gaga, but why not throw her into the mix?
Just finally, we're talking about how this race might be contested afterwards. Just the example of how that happens. So we've got this unprecedented level of pre-polling and a lot of these mail-in ballots, obviously, and that's the key. The rules have been set, if you like, by states. There have been some contests in court, so they can decide when they're going to count the actual votes. In some cases, it's after Election Day, as long as they're sent by Election Day. What we're getting the possibility, though, is state Supreme Courts this will go to, and even perhaps the Supreme Court of the US afterwards. That's the battle here, isn't it? And why this could take a long time and get really messy. They will fight over the rules, even though the rules have been set, and that could upset counting that's already happened. I mean, this gets complicated.
Yeah, it does. And I was listening to the Secretary of State for Pennsylvania talking about how they're going to handle those votes that come in with a postmark on the day of election or beyond. And it sounded like they were effectively going to sequester those votes just in case they are challenged and they need to be recounted. I mean,
which is smart, right? Whatever you think of the politics, at least you can say, well, the election can be preserved for whatever the ultimate rules end up being.
Absolutely. And look, lawyers have been weaponised in US elections for a long time. They will be weaponised in this election. They'll have teams ready to go. Both campaigns will have teams ready to go, already based in some of the states where they're expecting there will be legal fights, or where there have already been legal fights, and there's been a couple that have made it all the way to the Supreme Court the last couple of weeks. And that's what's going to slow down the results. So Pennsylvania, for example, if it's close and there's a stoush over, when these votes are going to be counted and how, we may not know the final result there for a month.